Hey everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am Charlotte Graham, author and blogger, and today I am reviewing a book that I just finished reading, and it was called Your Perfect Year, and it's by an author named Charlotte Lucas. Um, so this book was originally written in German. It takes place in Germany, and it was translated to English, I believe, a few years ago. But I'd like to start by saying that I'm giving it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I couldn't figure out how to make like a half star symbol on the cover of this YouTube video, but I decided just to round up to 5 for the sake of that cover art. So let's get started with this review. So what is this book about? Your Perfect Year is about two perfect strangers living in Hamburg, Germany, whose lives intersect in a totally bizarre and unexpected way. So one of the main characters is a man named Jonathan, and he's in his early 40s. He is heir to a publishing house, and he is very fastidious. He is very exacting. He lives his life on just like this regimented routine, and he's not terribly happy. I mean, he's not like overtly depressed, but he's just kind of floating by. And then there is also a character named Hannah, and she is in her late 20s, and she's pretty much the polar opposite of Jonathan. She is just hopelessly optimistic. She is your stereotypical manic pixie dream girl. And she has a boyfriend named Simon. And there will be some spoilers in this video, so I'm going to go ahead and warn you that if you have not read the book and you intend to read it, you might want to stop watching now, because it's, normally I avoid spoilers in my videos, and I won't give everything away, but I kind of have to give away the hook of the novel in order to really talk about what I loved and what I didn't care for as much. So with that being said, Hannah's boyfriend, Simon, gets a devastating diagnosis of lymphoma, and the prospects are not good, and he does not handle the news very well. So basically what this book is about is Hannah, in an effort to kind of cheer Simon up and help him, look on the bright side, because that's her reaction to everything in life, is to be optimistic. She creates a calendar for him, like one of those, planners that has a page for every day of the year. And on every single day, she writes down these instructions for like ways to make him happy, and like ways to just get out there and live life and enjoy, what little time he has left, and all these motivational quotes and stuff kind of like stay up late and watch the sunrise, and go for a walk in a park in your bare feet, and things like that. Simon commits suicide, and he leaves the diary, the calendar, hanging from the bicycle of a random stranger at a park. And you can probably guess by now who that random stranger happens to be. It is Jonathan, our curmudgeonly, pessimistic grouch of a protagonist. So Jonathan initially tries to find the owner of this diary, because like he finds this on his bike when he gets done with his run on New Year's morning, and he's like, what is this? This doesn't belong to me. I don't recognize this handwriting. this must belong to someone else. So he tries to find the owner and he can't. And meanwhile, Simon has disappeared. And he left Hannah a suicide note. But they hadn't found his body yet. So anyway, the book is basically about, like, the chapters alternate being told from Jonathan's perspective and Hannah's perspective. And so for like the first, I'd say like 75% of the book, like they're not even, like they haven't even met yet. So this isn't really a rom-com, even though it does have elements of romance. So basically you get to see like these dual timelines like slowly converging, and it's really beautiful how the author does it. Because Jonathan, when he realizes that he's just not going to be able to find the owner of the notebook, he kind of resigns himself to like, well, it's mine now. My life is in a rut. I'm kind of always so grumpy. Why don't I just try to like do everything the notebook tells me to do? So he starts each day, and, however silly he thinks the instructions are, he follows them. And over time, like, it's really beautiful to see his character progression, because over time he kind of loosens up and becomes less curmudgeonly, and just becomes he just becomes more alive, really, because, when the book starts, he is living his life in a way that I think a lot of us do, which is to say, and myself definitely included, which is to say, he just kind of follows the same routine every day, and, he's just kind of floating by. So that's a really beautiful progression to see. Hannah, meanwhile, her narrative follows, just the devastation in her life after finding Simon's suicide note and then finding him just gone. And, them eventually finding the body and everything. So what was I going to say? Hannah's character is what made me take off half a star. This was a beautiful story, and I loved the hook. Like, I love the idea of like someone finding kind of a bucket list that's not meant for them, and it, like, by fate or whatever happenstance, comes into their life. I think that's a really cool hook for a book. But oh my gosh, Hannah's character drove me nuts. She didn't show any character growth or development really much at all throughout the whole book. And, in the beginning of the book, I had a lot of sympathy for her. But, towards the end, like when her story converges with Jonathan and they finally meet, she was just really mean to him. And I don't think he deserved that. And she also had some pretty extremist views, I think, in my opinion, which, to be fair, they kind of evolved throughout the book. But she says, like, her character on more than one occasion, says something to the effect of, you should be an optimist because whatever you think will come true. So, and I wish I could find the exact quote, but she has this one quote where it's basically like, people who expect good things to happen will have good things happen to them. And only the bad things in life are reserved for the people who were scared of bad things, or something to that effect. And it was just like, I became like physically angry when I read it. I think there's a lot to be said for optimism. I know that out of the two characters, I relate more to Jonathan than to Hannah. But, to me, it's just so like victim blamey to say that, oh, you weren't optimistic enough. That's why you got cancer. Like, that's awful. That's a truly awful thing to say. So, and maybe maybe it struck a particular nerve with me because, infertility is not something I ever asked for or would ever wish on anyone. It's just crappy luck, same with miscarriages or cancer. There's just some things that, bad things happen to good people. And, I do agree with her as far as things that we can change and that we can impact. I 100% agree that, like, as an author who is trying to get published, that I need to stay optimistic and I need to believe that I can do this. So, in that regard, I do 100% agree with her, but she just like took that philosophy to an extreme and I think was really kind of callous towards Simon before he left or before he before he died by suicide. Excuse me. So I would say that, like, Hannah's character and her lack of progression is really what bugged me the most about this book. And also, like I said earlier, she was just your typical manic pixie dream girl, which I think that trope can work well if it's done well, or maybe if it's played for laughs or something, but I don't know, it kind of fell flat for me. But other than that, I really loved everything about this book. As I mentioned, there are some tougher topics in here, so I'll just put out the following kind of content warnings for anyone watching this debating whether or not you should read it. It does obviously deal with suicide. It's not graphic, like the depiction of it or anything. It's off screen, but that is a central plot point in this book. Also lymphoma, so cancer. And then one of the kind of side characters has dementia. So, if that's something you don't want to read about, then definitely be aware going into it. And, I'm not going to spoil the ending or say, what happens in the end. But I will say that I was just overall really pleased with this book. And I loved the hook most of all. And I like Jonathan a lot. So that is it for my review of Your Perfect Year. If you've read the book, please leave your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.